All right. No, that's not very good. I always wonder if I should have like a more exciting intro, like a radio voice. Hey, turn by turn podcast, welcome. But I don't know, it just doesn't feel like me. So
I think you just do what feels like you.
just keep it. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Turn by Turn podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Advanced Wars as we continue our Game Boy Advance circuit. I am joined, as always, with Alex. How you doing?
Pretty good. I hope all of our commanding officers are doing good out there that are tuning in.
So I'm your commanding officer, Daniel, and we have commanding officer Alex, I suppose, for this episode only. We will give up our ceremonial titles for the next episode.
Sounds good. Unless we do more Advance Wars, and then we'll have to pick it back up again.
Exactly.
I don't know if we said it. That's what we're doing today, Advance Wars.
Yes, we are talking Advanced Wars. Just to get the ball rolling, what was your first encounter with Advanced Wars?
I don't totally know. It's just one of those that I've just kind of been aware of for a really long time. I think I liked, as you'll know if you've listened to other episodes of our show, I liked the Fire Emblem games, and then I saw, I think, some just footage somewhere, maybe on the internet, of Advance Wars, and I was like, oh, hey, that looks like Fire Emblem, not knowing that the same developer, Intelligent Systems, made both. So I was just really interested to try it, and so I did.
So my thing is fairly similar to yours. So in previous episodes, I've talked about a catalog that highlighted new games that would be coming out, and Advance Wars was listed in it, and it never really had a lot of appeal because the main character on the title was holding a wrench, and I thought it had to do with like mechanics, like fixing vehicles.
I see.
And at the time, that super didn't appeal. So
I mean, for me, that still would not appeal.
So I just completely ignored it for a long time. And then in high school, when will perhaps date me pretty bad, when emulators first started becoming pretty popular and common, everybody was downloading emulators to play during class, and it was kind of trendy to find new games to play. So being wildly unpopular as I am and have been, I chose Advance Wars as the game I was going to play, and it's definitely a special interest game. And I like the gameplay style because, like Alex was saying, I like Fire Emblem and Shining Force that have the same tactical map style. So that style appeals to me, but Advance Wars is very different than either of those games.
I think we can talk about first, maybe. To me, the setting is something that really sets it apart.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, like the examples you brought up, Fire Emblem and Shining Force, those are both more fantasy-esque, and Advance Wars is just very, a lot more modern day, with soldiers with rifles and stuff running around. And it's really just different from anything Nintendo published. We didn't really see them, have things like tanks and rifles and soldiers. And we still don't really. It's still very rare to see Nintendo put their seal on anything like that.
It really leans into the tactical map mechanic as being sort of the feature of the game rather than the plot or the story. So basically the plot is that there's these 4 unique armies, and they believe that one of them has taken up arms against the others. So they all sort of start weaponizing, and then they realize that they've been befuddled, and someone has just been a doppelganger for the main character. And when they realize that they've been tricked, they join forces to take out the other army, is basically what the plot is. So it's a very, very basic story. Even when you play through it the first time, you don't even kind of get to the story until you go through the pretty significant tutorial.
Yeah, I was looking it up. The tutorial has 14 levels.
Mm-hmm. It almost makes you feel like when you open it up that that's all there is. It's more it's sort of like Super Smash Brothers Melee, but with a tactical map. You can do head-to-head matches, or you can just play one player against the computer.
Yes.
I imagine that there were some people, more aloof people, perhaps like myself, that would see that and think, "Oh, there's no story mode to this game," even though, like, the tutorials ramp you up into it.
Yeah, 14 is a long time to be spending in tutorials.
A long time, and you can't really skip them.
No. And looking at it, if you achieve all of the bonus missions, which you only get by doing specific conditions in the level prior, there's 22 missions. So the tutorial levels are more than half as long as the game,
Yep.
which is a lot, obviously a lot.
Which, as far as the Nintendo games go, they usually, they're like, each new release will have sort of a different gimmick to it. Whether you buy, like, in this case, the gimmick was the tactical map, like, gameplay, where you get to move your units one by one, but you have, like, probably 10 to 20 of them that you have access to.
Also, if you don't, I was going to add on, but it took me a second because I'm terrible at math. If you do not get any of the bonus missions, you get 17 story missions. So there's only 3 more than tutorial levels. As for the new mechanic kind of thing, something that really stands out to me, specifically about Advance Wars versus those other series that we were mentioning, it's the unit production and stuff, that your units are not named other than your commanding officer. They're just sort of fodder units that you create in each map, and they don't follow you or gain experience or anything like that. And by follow you, I mean they don't hold over between levels.
I would think that based on, like, the games you like to play, that isn't something you're a big fan of.
About that, I would typically prefer having units that follow you into multiple levels and stuff, and building up, gaining experience and things. But another genre I've said I think, on the show is RTS games, real-time strategy. And this really, Advance Wars is really reminiscent of those to me, because something I really like is playing games like Age of Mythology or Age of Empires or Lord of the Rings, Battle for Middle-earth, and building bases and building up my forces and stuff. And sometimes that's more fun to me than even the actual gameplay, like what I'm supposed to be doing. And I kind of get those same vibes with Advance Wars sometimes. Obviously not playing like super competitively, but if I'm ever like getting overwhelmed and losing a fight really bad, you can kind of pull back and just kind of play defensively and build a bunch of units and kind of base build. And I really like that.
It's funny that you mentioned Age of Empires, because I was thinking that I haven't played the 14 or so different games that are in, like, the Family of Wars series, but I was thinking that it'd be really cool if you could time hop in Advance Wars. So you could have, like, the normal, like, military setting with the guns and the tanks and the different units that are available to you, but you could also go back and have, like, knights, or even into the future and have robots. I thought that would be a really cool idea. Or even almost, I don't know how familiar you are with Civilization, but, like, let
Yes.
you like, start with, like, prehistoric people and slowly, like, gravitate to, like, pirates or whatever, and then knights, and then Civil War, or whatever, like, military units through time you'd want to be.
Yeah. Quick aside too, that's just kind of interesting. I've never really cared for Civilization,
Me neither,
because
but
without the combat, just makes it feel like I'm not playing the game really. I feel like I'm skipping a really big step.
yeah, it feels like you just sort of are watching the gameplay happen.
Yeah, I much prefer Total War
Yep,
for that reason.
same. That was just the first example I could think of the, like, you slowly build through time.
Hmm. And also, that's only when I have people to play Total War with, because goodness, those games last an eternity. But so do Civilization games. So I look at friends' Steam library sometimes, like, to see what they've been playing, and Some of them it's like 2,000 hours on Civ 5 especially, and I'm like, oh, they finished 3 games of Civ.
I remember, we're doing massive tangent here, but I'll swing it back.
Okay.
When I first got Civilization for the computer, I was excited because I thought it was gonna be basically Age of Empires, like, exactly like Age of Empires,
I see.
and then I put it in, and, like, I didn't get to play for, like, 3 hours. Like, it was just, like, clicking along and being so disappointed, like, the battles would happen and you basically, like, just watch them. But to round it back in, I never get that vibe from Advance Wars. You're allowed to control the combat from the beginning of the battle till the end, and I think it almost benefits from not having, like, a huge bulky story connected to it, that it does focus on the tactical map and, like, what the different units are capable of.
Yeah, I think so.
So, do you have, like, a favorite commanding officer that you would use?
I knew you were going to ask me this, so I do have the list in front of me. I mean, it's been a long time since I played Advance Wars 1. In terms of design, I like Kanbei a lot because I'm very into samurai Japan, and he's
Mhm.
very reminiscent of Hideyoshi Toyotomi, who is a ruler from that era. And I looked, and it doesn't say that that's what he was inspired by, but one of Hideyoshi's lead officers was named Kanbei Kuroda, so I do think that Kanbei might be inspired by that just a little bit.
That'd be pretty
Um,
cool.
Other than that, I do plan on revisiting it when the remake comes out, and I'm not entirely sure who I'm gonna play. Part of it depends on what they do.
Mhm.
I like playing. We'll get into that in a minute. Who's your favorite?
Uh, I tended to go with Sammy. I don't know why. She seemed kinda cool. I liked that her focus was infantry units,
Hmm.
sort of as far as, like, the chess game of it goes. It's always fun to kinda mess around with, like, the more pawn-like units
Yeah, I think so too.
rather than, like, crushing in with a tank. It's kinda more fun to build up the battle a little by going in with the smaller units.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually kind of what I was going to get into. For the remake, which has been announced recently, we still, at the time of recording, don't know a lot about it. They haven't told us much, but I've seen the community crying out for somewhat some changes, which is rare, especially when old games are remade, that they want it to be exactly the same. But it seems like people are wanting at least the online to be a little more balanced because some units or some commanding officers are just way better apparently than others. It seems like from what I've been hearing, Max is just the best.
I would probably agree with that. He's basically the Mario of this game, so it would stand to reason that kind of the overpowered benefit.
Yeah, it says his non-infantry direct combat units have 150% firepower.
Yeah, that would give you the slight edge.
Yeah, that is a lot. What else is this? Yeah, all non-infantry direct combat is increased to 140%. All units gain a 10% defense bonus. Non-infantry direct combat unit movement increases by 1, so you can move 1 more space per turn. Yeah, it's just a lot. But a little bit of a different take. I told Daniel before we started this episode, I don't really have too many hot takes for Advance Wars, but I guess I've got one. And that's I hope they don't make it too balanced. Because I just don't like it when games are too balanced. I really liked in Advance Wars that each of the commanding officers actually did feel different. So like if you're playing as Max, you want to just be building tanks and cars and things. If you're playing as Drake, he has worse air units, but he has better naval units. His boats are really good. As much as boats can be good. Boats in this game are pretty terrible, but I like that there's a guy that's what he does, and if you play him, it encourages you to build boats. And I was going to compare this to a game we might do an episode on in the future, Wargroove. which I also have a lot of love for. It's kind of a spiritual successor to Advance Wars. But something I really didn't like about Wargroove was that they even put your commanding officer on the field, which I loved. But I didn't like that all of the commanding officers felt really samey, and all of the different factions also felt really samey. Anytime I went against somebody, I didn't feel like who they were playing told me much about their playstyle or really what to expect, because one was as good as another, and it was all very well balanced. I can't fault them for that at all. Like it was balanced, I thought, phenomenally, but that made it a little more boring for me. I would much rather see somebody like Drake coming in, and if I'm fighting against a Drake player, I'm like, okay, he's gonna definitely have big focus on boats, so I need to counter boats. But it just kind of makes me think about things differently going into each battle. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I think that you have to. It makes you not have one formulaic strategy each time. You have to come up with something different to counteract whatever the sort of CO benefit is, which I like because in some of the other like tactical map games, it feels like you can do the same thing every time. You can toss your like tank characters in the front and then get your like more ranged people in the back, sort of let the guys in the front take all the hits, and then you just swarm in with your ranged units, and that's how you beat every single map. But this like throws in the wrench of you have to plan differently.
Yeah, another one like Olaf. Olaf does a lot better. All his units do better in snow, or really they're just unaffected by snow. But this does a lot of that, severely limits the movement of other officers. So even though it's kind of a niche thing, then Olaf ends up being interesting, and his power, which you can use after you build up enough meter, is it causes it to snow until his next turn. And I just think stuff like that is cool. And it's kind of the same with the RTS games I was talking about before. Another one I really enjoy is Warhammer Dawn of War. And if you play with all the expansions, that gets really nutty and has like 10 different factions, and it's not the best balanced game, but they're all unique and it doesn't really matter. It all ends up being fun. And also because it's not the best balanced, I can get new people to play it with me, and then they can pick somebody that's better objectively, and I can pick somebody that's objectively worse. And then we're closer to even footing, and we're both still having fun because we both still get to try as hard as we want. So for Advance Wars, I would probably, for somebody new, I would be like, all right, you need to be max and you need to build tanks. And that's your strategy, and that's how you win. But then I can, try to be Olaf and be trying to pace myself and get snow until it snows. Or, I can play Drake and be at a severe disadvantage and try and wage war from the ocean. I just like the way that can be a little bit unbalanced, and by nature of that, it ends up balancing itself a little bit better when you're playing with people,
And I think that in like future installments, they could go even kind of heavier with it. Like in different RPG games, you can up your like snow ability, so to speak. Like give more like statistical data that you can mess with. Like you were saying earlier, there's not like stat advancement for like infantry troops. You sort of have your same units the whole game through. Like it'd be cool if they added in more like patable stats. They don't have to give all the characters names, or like keep it in the format that it's in, but like let you up CO ability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. My solution more than that, though, I think would be because that's definitely be harder to balance online. I would prefer to just differentiate even more the different factions. So I would maybe create 1 or 2 units that each faction has access to that the other factions do not. That would be one of my fixes. So like the Orange Star Army maybe gets late, like he can be expensive, it can be late game, but like a little bit better infantry guy. And then maybe the Green Earth faction, since they have Drake and Eagle, maybe they get like a little bit better of a plane or a slightly better boat than other factions. Like I don't know how you'd balance all that. But it'd be cool just to have different specialties, so that it meant your faction choice meant even more.
Like boat units, like you could have like a submarine officer sort of idea. Like you could add in more variation.
Yeah, I just like a lot of varied stuff.
Almost like take a page from Clash of Clans.
Maybe I'm not too familiar with Clash of Clans, so for our viewers at home that also are not that familiar, what do you mean by that?
So with Clash of Clans, as you continue to play and unlock things, you different unit sets. So like you start off, the names of the characters are a little foggy at this point, but you have like a wizard, and then you unlock the next level after a wizard, but you have like different troops that you can deploy in battle, basically.
So you're saying maybe for Advanced Wars, at the start you pick a couple of units maybe that are different that you can deploy from a list?
Exactly. Like you could have like but a unit list with like different options. So maybe a better example would be Star Wars, where you have like snow troopers and like range troopers and like a stormtrooper for every occasion. You could have like a sniper unit or
Yeah, so you're saying like, if I'm Andy and I'm going into a match against Olaf, then I know, maybe 9 out of his 12 units he can build, and then there's just three or four that I have no idea until I see them that he can pick from a list. And it could be things like a sniper unit that can attack from 3 spaces away and does more damage but has like no defense, or maybe there's a flamethrower unit that does tons of extra damage to infantry but does almost nothing to tanks. Things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that could be really cool and definitely a good way to spice it up. And that would also, a big thing is preserving online balance, because I know that's something that people really want with this. And I don't even think that the remake has announced they'll have online play yet, but we're just sort of taking it as a given that we will.
I think the best assumption is that they're going to release a new special cable that you have to buy to connect your switches together to play them, like back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. Though another thing that I remember Advance Wars doing, and I don't know if it was in the first one or if it came later, but it was actually multiplayer on one Game Boy Advance system. You remember that?
I don't. I never really did the multiplayer with anybody when playing it.
So it would be like Fog of War, and you could do your turn, and then when you push end turn, it would say, okay, hand off the Game Boy to player 2. And then it would shift to player 2 could push okay, and it would shift to their view of the Fog of War, and then they would get to take their turn.
Kind of annoying.
I mean,
like, a good idea.
To me, I think it's pretty awesome, because it was, how many Game Boy Advance games had local multiplayer?
None. I would imagine that's probably close to the only one.
I don't remember when that came in. It might have been Advance Wars 2, and it might have also taken until the DS with like Dual Strike and Days of Ruin or something. But gotcha. Definitely something I thought was really cool.
All right. Well, how about we actually pop to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
That sounds good to me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mike.
And we are brothers-in-law. We both love beer and are amateur home brewers.
Wait, so does that make us brothers-in-law?
I believe so.
Every episode, we will talk about aspects of beer and home brewing.
But nothing super technical because we're learning this too.
So join us as we sit down together and dive into something beer related.
Whether it's a little field research, tasting a certain beer style, or beers from a specific brewery.
Talk about our experiences brewing beer at home, including our own solo brews, as well as themed competitions we'll set up along the way.
We will also talk about some of our favorite aspects of brewing, like hops, extra ingredients, building our brew cave, and more. And of course, our own misadventures that have happened along the way.
So, if you like beer, are home brewing already,
or if you have an interest in home brewing and don't know where to start,
join us on Brothers-in-Law Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to follow us on Twitter at Brothers-in-Law and check out our website, brothersinlaw.com.
Cheers.
Cheers.
One heist. 6 plots for betrayal. When Raya Cautela cons 5 other thieves into helping her steal a magical artifact from the most powerful man in the world, she knows she's playing with fire. What she doesn't know is that the rest of her crew is just as underhanded as she is, and they all have plans of their own. M.J. Kuhn's Among Thieves, a fantasy heist novel full of twists, turns, and betrayal, available beginning September 7th wherever books are sold. Visit mjkuhn.com for more details.
All right, we are back from our break, and I believe that Alex wanted to start this one off with a softball question for me to hit out of the park.
Yes. What was your favorite unit to use if you just got to build whatever you wanted?
All right, my favorite unit was probably the Battlecopter. It's just very useful to have a unit that's able to deal very damage to almost anything, and the increased mobility for it. Did you like the Battlecopter, or what was one of your favorites?
I did, but my favorite's actually kind of the opposite. The artillery and the rockets. The real long-range stuff that you have to set up ahead of time and then have real long range. I like those a lot because kind of, again, in that base buildy way, I enjoy setting up and then setting up kind of kill zones that you just can't pass through anymore. Because it feels great if you spend a ton of money on a giant tank or something, and then I just have a bunch of artillery and it's just gone.
So did you do like a lot of bottlenecking?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I always think the bottlenecking is so annoying when I'm playing the tactical map things. So
yeah, it definitely can be.
It's fun to be able to set up your own.
I also figured we'd get into some other weird trivia things with this, if you're good to do that.
Yeah.
All right, so I didn't know this, but on the game's wiki page, it says, due to the game's the game's original Japanese release date was scheduled during the aftermath of 9/11 in the U.S., which was a huge terrorist attack we had here for people that are not from the U.S. or somehow don't know that. But the developers didn't feel like it was right. Nintendo was like, nah, let's wait then. And released it so much later that the sequel was already done. And so it came out on the Game Boy as one cartridge called Advance Wars, or Game Boy Wars in Japan. So it's called Game Boy Wars Advance 1+2.
I can totally understand that, just because it's a very bright and colorful game, and it has like a very like comic art style to it.
Yeah.
But if you like kind of think about what you're actually doing, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, that's kind of how all these tactical games are, I think. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just watching when you have your infantry like stomp down the city or the, I guess they
the towers.
They stomp the towers down to the ground.
Yeah, I actually had not thought of that, but now that you mention it,
thinking about what that actually means as an adult, it never really like fazed me as a kid, but
yeah, me either, but it is definitely a little bit weird.
Pretty dark for like the very bright color palette they go with.
Yes. And speaking of bright and colorful, another game in that same series is Battalion Wars. Do you have any experience with that one?
I don't. I've actually only played Advance Wars. I haven't gotten into the sequel. I'm very curious to check them out, though, just because I'm a huge sucker for the tactical maps. As anyone who's listened to like more than 5 minutes of this podcast knows, huge sucker for that gameplay style. It's my favorite.
Mine too, but I got into Battalion Wars, and I have a lot of memories of that because it's for the GameCube, and it's more active shootery. It's like a third-person shooter, and you use the C stick, and you can command your troops to do different things, and then you can go to like an aerial view and take like direct control of any unit that you want to. So that ended up being, I thought, really, really cool. And it is related to Advance Wars because it seems like they said the wiki says it was not going to be related, but it has the same lighthearted tone, very similar graphical style, and the units all look like Advance Wars units. So at some point, Nintendo actually announced a game called Advance Wars Under Fire that was going to be a specifically Advance Wars Battalion Wars title in that exact same style. But then eventually they decided to change it for the States. But the Battalion Wars 2 in Japan is still called Tatsugeki Famicom Wars Versus. So, and Famicom Wars is the Japanese title of Advance Wars. So it is still considered to be the same thing, even if in the States it got a little bit more obscure.
So
go ahead.
No. It's all you.
Oh, I was just going to say another weird factoid about that is it took forever for me as a kid to find a copy of Battalion Wars, like forever, because I guess it's a pretty rare title. And then it was really easy as an adult to find a copy of Battalion Wars 2, which I bought for like a couple bucks. It was really cheap at the time. Battalion Wars 2 is for the Wii. And to this day, I've still not played Battalion Wars 2, even though I owned it, because I think I own it anyway. I'm not totally sure about that. But I learned how you controlled it. And I really liked the GameCube control layout. And Battalion Wars 2, you had to like hold the Wiimote in front of you and then use the nunchuck and like aim, and it was all motion controls. And I was like, oh no.
I feel like the Wii motion controls are the ire of many, many gamers.
Yeah, it just didn't. I just feel like a lot of it just didn't make sense. And some of it did, like Wii Sports obviously was amazing, but Nintendo was just a little bit too gung-ho and wanted to do a lot of things that they couldn't quite do.
I thought when I was doing my research for the episode, as our more dedicated listeners will know, I've become mildly obsessed with the Satellaview. In Advance War, one of the games in the series was released onto the Satellaview.
Was it? I didn't even know that.
Yes, Super Famicom Wars, which is technically the fourth game in the series. And it just like, the more I read about it, just the weirder it gets. Let me change that. The weirder and more wonderfully amazing it gets. This other device exists, just utterly fascinating to me. And it's Super Famicom Wars is in the similar style, but it feels like a war style game. If you get a chance, look it up, because like the cover art is like green beret looking.
I was just about to bring that up. Do you want to describe it real quick?
So it's a bunch of like green beret looking guys in like green t-shirts, and they're all like shouting and
he's leaving out though. This is not stylized at all. It is like a photograph of all of these guys. These are all like real people.
Yeah. And like they're all like weirdly sweating. And it's just one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, which just contributes to this Teleview in general. So it just makes me so happy to know that it exists.
Yeah, and the backdrop they're standing in front of is just like generic fire effect. I think that's what that's supposed to be.
It's either that or sand.
Yeah, it's weirdly hard to tell.
Yeah. Listeners, you definitely need to check it out because it's so wildly different than like any game cover I've ever seen. Which
Yeah, some of them look like they're not that stoked about being there. The guy holding the flag just kind of looks like, yeah, I'm getting paid to do this. But that black guy on the left, man, he looks so intense. Like
he came to play.
I don't know what he came to do, but he came to do something. Because man, he's ready for it.
Yeah, just it further engages my theory that the Satellaview was entirely like manufactured and created by interns.
Okay, reading about it, which I'm just now doing. It says a group of 6 soldiers from the game appears in the Wii game Captain Rainbow, which we did not even get in the States. They got it in Japan and Taiwan, and that's it. And the soldiers in the game aspire to win a gold medal in a volleyball tournament.
Yes, which is just, it just seems like an offshoot of like Top Gun or something.
It does say an English language fan translation was released in 2018. So maybe this is a future episode. We're gonna do Famicom Wars.
We should just have like a special Satellaview episode where we deep dive all of the games.
I don't know if I can spend that many hours in advance playing Satellaview games. I'm gonna be honest.
We'll split the list.
Yeah, and I say that, you know, maybe they're all going to be fantastic, but just of the stuff I've seen of Super Famicom Wars and BS Fire Emblem, that is what it's called. My hopes are not super high.
I think it could very highly be one of those things where like the descriptions of them don't remotely do it justice. And maybe a lot of the games are super cool and everybody's been missing out. We could almost become like the hipsters of the Satellaview. And then it'll catch on and everyone will be playing like the Johnny Race Car game and
Oh man,
Super Famicom Wars.
I already feel that way when people ask for my favorite console, and I tell them like one of my absolute favorites is the Sega Genesis. A lot of people look at me and go, "What is that?" I cannot imagine trying to explain to them what a Satellaview is.
The Sega Genesis is your favorite?
It's one of my favorites.
Huh. Okay.
Maybe that'll be a future episode too. We can do top consoles.
That's actually a good idea.
Planning here live on air.
This has been a look behind the curtain. But I think with to bring it back in, it's obviously been a popular style, and I almost kind of wonder, not to knock it on consoles, but it seems like it's primed to be a mobile app.
I would rather it. There's just something about phones, and I think it has to do with monetization, that I'm really, really averse to gaming on my phone at this point. When I was a kid, I was really excited by it because it was just starting. I remember getting really excited, you know, oh, I can play Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic on my phone. And now I'm like, why would I ever want to do that?
Having recently downloaded Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and tried to play it on my phone, I totally agree. It's pretty tough. With the different unit types and things, it would lend itself really well to the phone. It wouldn't be fun because the paywalls would be exorbitant and frustrating, but
yeah, that's kind of my thing. And I do think I'd be remiss to not mention that there is an Advance Wars online, which I can get you the name of in just a couple seconds. But it does allow you to play Advance War it's exactly what it sounds like. You can play Advance Wars online today on your browser. And some of the other really cool things, I think, were like it has a function where you can take your turn and start lots of different games. And then you can, like a phone game, you can make your move whenever you're ready, and it can take multiple days. So you can just check in, kind of like chess, and make your move whenever you're ready. And sometimes you can do a couple in a row, but you can have lots of different games going. And I think it's really cool to think of Advance Wars as a game like that.
That is a cool idea. I know I work with seniors, and one of our residents was playing like male chess with a couple of, I'm not sure if they were his friends or if he was connected with the program, but he would mail his move back to the other player and they'd keep the game going. Like they'd each have the chessboard set up in their room, and they'd keep the pieces moving. So I think that would actually be a pretty cool mechanic.
Yeah, the app is called Advance Wars by Web. And I'm really hoping Nintendo leaves it up. But yeah, it's free. You don't even have to download it. It's totally in browser. You can do 1v1s, teams, free-for-alls with up to 15 other players, it says, which is insane to think about. I'm just reading off their features list here. You can play all 5 original factions, and they've made 11 more factions. It says play as any commanding officer from Advance Wars 1, 2, or DS. We have a library of thousands of user-created maps, or you can make your own, and there's a competitive ladder with tournaments. So, I mean, if you're really into Advance Wars, you probably already know about this. But if you're really into Advance Wars and you don't know about this, this is perfect for you.
Yeah, I was actually thinking if the podcast takes off and becomes popular and we have like people who comment a lot, we could even like kind of plan up some of these things and like hang out with the listeners through Advance Wars. That could be
that'd
fun.
be great. Through anything, I'd be willing to play whatever. But Advance Wars would be a great one, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be a really easy one for anybody to hop on and play with us. Would be a pretty cool way to do that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we'd have that one guy that's super into Advance Wars and that's his thing, and he'll destroy all of us, but it'll still be fun.
Definitely worth trying. And that actually made it's totally random question, but a question popped into my head. Would you want Advance War characters in Smash Brothers? Whichever iteration exists when you're listening to this. Is that something that would interest you?
Honestly, not really. I just think I would much rather have, if we're going to get another Intelligent Systems rep, I know it's going to sound crazy and people want to kill me for it, but I'd much rather have another Fire Emblem character that is not a sword user. I'd really like an axe user or something like that than an Advance Wars rep. And even though I haven't played Golden Sun, I also might prefer Isaac over an Advance Wars rep just because I don't know who would lend themselves to Advance Wars really well. The face of the series is kind of Andy, but I just don't have a great desire to play as Andy in a fighting game.
Mm-hmm. I think that it'd have to be somewhat similar to Pokemon Trainer, where like you'd sort of have Andy on the sidelines and you could like call up like different like units. Like you'd have like 3 different units maybe, and
but
you'd
it's still
cycle through them.
Maybe, but I'm like, what, like with Pokemon Trainer, they don't always say Pokemon Trainer. The announcer's like Ivysaur or Charizard. And what would it be for this? Like infantry guy. Like you see kind of what I mean? Like battle tank, battle copter. Like what would that even be?
I think you're selling me on it the more you talk about it.
You really want to play like Battlecopter versus Donkey Kong? Like
kind of.
I don't even know. Like
it fit the zaniness of the overall tone pretty well.
I mean, somewhat, but I think it might be a little bit too much because I just can't think of like that many moves for a Battlecopter to do. How would you make it jump? I heard the Black Knight from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance was not, there's a rumor he was not included in Smash Ultimate because they couldn't make him jump and have it not look weird. And I kind of get that. But I'm like, the same with like a Battlecopter. Like, how would Battlecopter jump? Or
it'd be sort of like Herbie. Is it Herbie? The robot. I always forget his name.
Rob.
Herbie's from Fantastic Four. Their robot's name is Herbie. But
I was thinking the living punch bug car. This is a disaster.
No, we're doing good here, I think. But it would be more of like a levitating, like Kirby, where you can like float up, like levitate into the air.
You mean Rob? I don't know. Maybe like it would just be super weird.
It would be super, super weird, but I feel like they could make it work, and it'd be like almost a novelty thing, like Mr. Game & Watch, where his attacks are like throwing sausages and stuff from his like griddle. So like, I feel like if they wanted to, they could probably figure out how to make it work. But more realistically, it could be like a cool like unlockable trophy or something.
Yeah, your final smash is whatever character your enemy is playing runs into a building and your soldiers all run in and stomp it to the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
This sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah, but they could definitely make it work if they wanted to.
I mean, Sakurai is a madman. He could make anything work. I really believe that.
But if they're not willing to just have like a horse jumping be part of it, it's hard to see how they'd get like a levitating helicopter into it. But
the Black Knight in Path of Radiance is not on a horse.
Oh, he's not? They just the jumping in the armor was too unbelievable?
Yes, he has really heavy armor. So they were like, any jump animation we gave him just looked really janky.
Huh.
And he's one of my most wanted characters. He's Ike's rival. I think he'd be the perfect... I'd love a villain from Fire Emblem. Any villain, really. But the Black Knight would be one of... I said I didn't want a sword user, but my top two I'd want added probably are the Black Knight or Lion from Sacred Stones. But yeah, definitely, though, I get what Sakurai was saying. That I cannot imagine him jumping in Smash Bros. And having it not raise eyebrows. He jumps in his basic game. Like, he jumps in Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, I think. I think so. But, yeah, it looks a little bit weird there, too.
Sure. But I guess I will table my Advanced Wars Smash hopes for now. Still think it could be possible. Did anything about the music really stick out to you? I don't really remember having any like iconic warm feelings about the music.
Yeah, no. It's fine. I think it's nice, but it's not anything, absolutely amazing. At least not for Advance Wars 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely still, though, to the point that I'm like, you've got the Game Boy Advance to work with, and okay, like, you did fine. There's a lot of soundtracks, I think, on the GBA that are really bad due to the constraints, and this is not one of those. It's passable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I do like the sound design, though, of, like, the guns shooting and stuff, and people moving. Like, it all sounds nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Serviceable.
I would say the shooting and stuff, I think that's a little more than serviceable. I'll give that a good.
Okay. That's fair. I won't fight you on that one.
Especially just given the constraints. Like, you're not going to have real meaty gunshots, but they sound good enough.
But as we head towards wrapping up, do you have any other final thoughts?
I don't think I do. I like Advance Wars. We will probably revisit this in the future when the remake comes out, and I'm sure I'll have more to say then. Probably more about the story. I'll have a lot more specific opinions on things because it'll be a lot more fresh in my mind. I think I said it in a previous episode, and I'll say it again now. If you really want more Advance Wars games, but also if you want more tactical strategy RPGs like Fire Emblem Advance Wars, Wargroove, etc., I do think it is really important to buy Advance Wars very close to launch, because I think that Nintendo and maybe other developers are going to be looking pretty hard at how the sales of Advance Wars does, and deciding if it's worth it to make more games in this style. So if that's really something that's important to you, I think you do need to try and support it if you can.
Mm-hmm. And I think the base, like the core audience, like the diehards, very attached to the style and the colors and in the gameplay. So I think that if it does get that really solid opening, that we very well could see like a completely new game, not just another reboot.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind another reboot as well. Doing, the last two, Dual Strike and Days of Ruin, maybe. I don't even know if you need to change anything. I don't know. I'm going to be happy with pretty much whatever. I think, maybe we'll get like a remake of Super Famicom Wars.
I know that's the dream.
But I'll be happy with anything that they do, I think.
Great. Me too. Well, I guess that will wrap us up for episode 11. Thank you, everybody, for checking in and listening to us every week, or every other week, I guess. And if you would rate and subscribe us on Apple Podcasts, we can be found under the Turn by Turn podcast there. And then let us know your favorite part of Advance Wars by messaging us on Twitter or Instagram at the Turn by Turn podcast. And we hope to catch you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.